Hey guys, welcome back. I actually wasn't prepared to film today. I just have, well, I always wear a jumper or a sweatshirt, but everything's kind of a mess. I'm looking really shiny in the viewfinder, but I was planning the Bible with Becks and I just got really excited and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to film it in the moment while I'm feeling all the feels and all the vibes because often I plan a video and I should just film it once I've planned it, but sometimes I leave it for a few days and then when it comes to doing it again, if I'm tired or whatever, it's harder to film. I still get excited and I'm still for the video, but while I'm pumped up and my camera was set up because I was filming stuff for youth work earlier, I thought, you know what, let's just record it tonight and then I can edit it tomorrow. So right now it's Friday and you guys are going to see this on Sunday. So I was thinking about what I wanted to film for Bible with Becks this week, or what kind of video I wanted to film in general. And so this time is less of a Bible with Becks because it isn't Bible verse first, but it was kind of an idea or something that I realized happens a lot in my life, and I was having kind of conversations about this and I wanted to talk about it. And so the title of this video, which you would have already seen, is It's Not For Me. I have said that like 100 times or more in my walk as a Christian. Someone will have brought up about, you know, I'm gonna go lead this thing, and I'll be like, oh, that's so not for me. And then probably like a year later, I'm doing the exact thing I just said wasn't for me. And so that's what I want to talk about. How often do we say it's not for me about something and then totally end up doing that thing, even when it's like the craziest thing ever? And kind of just wanted to talk about how God works in crazy ways. And as I was kind of jotting down my notes, the verse at the bottom of my page, I'm just gonna show you guys. Ooh, if it will focus. There we go. So the verse at the bottom of the page says, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him." And I was like, hold on a minute, isn't that just perfect? Because it's like saying we can't imagine what God has in store for us. And the amount of times that things come up and we're like, oh no, that's not for me. And then God's like, that is for you, because I have it prepared for you in like a year or in a few months or in a couple of weeks. So I just thought that was perfect. And then when I actually read the whole passage, I was like, yes, we're going to have to use this passage. God, you just like made it all align. And then he kind of made me think of another verse which will tie in as well. So let's talk about it's not for me. Something funny that came up this last week, which kind of made me think about doing this video. As I'm a deacon, we have different jobs, different roles to do different things. And I had to make phone calls. I can't remember if I said this in my Wednesday video, but we had to make phone calls and I really don't like making phone calls. I get really flustered. It's just quite unenjoyable for me, and I usually let other people do it. But when I looked at my team and I just saw the way that everything was going, I kind of felt God being like, you need to volunteer to make the phone calls. And I was so nervous before my first phone call, and I called. Before I called, I prayed and was just like, God, you know, give me the words, help me to do this. And miraculously, I made over 13, 14 calls that day. And some of them were hard and some of them were great. But God was really with me. And despite the fact that I literally sweated through my clothes, it was a breakthrough moment to see that God had prepared me to do it and he'd equipped me to do it, even though I had thought it is not for me. And it made me realize, oh, I can do this, and now I can volunteer to do these things. And it's happened to me time and time again. And I want to kind of put it out there to you guys. Maybe there's something that you've said, it's not for me. But actually God is like, you can do this. I'm going to equip you. I can make it happen. Maybe it is for you. You know, maybe he's putting it out there to you. That it is for you, because we make a lot of plans, we have a lot of ideas about ourselves, and we're not really right because we don't know ourselves entirely. We don't know our whole life story and life plan, but God does. And so we should be relying on him and not necessarily us. And so I guess my challenge is, one, maybe reevaluate the things that you've said, oh, it's not for me, because maybe it is for you, or maybe you could be more open to it. And two, when something comes up and you feel prompted, don't just give the answer, it's not for me, and push it away, but actually try it out. Because for me speaking, I had just been given the option. They needed help with a children's talk, and so I would have to talk for about 10 minutes at the front of church. And I knew that was my nudging, if that makes sense, by God. And so I took that opportunity. And then he snowballed it from there. So if I had just said, oh, but that kind of stuff is not for me, I would have, completely disregarded this path that God wanted me to go on. And I don't want you guys to miss out on a path that you could be going on because you think it's not for you. Just take hold of it. And there's a verse that kind of really says it well, which is Proverbs 16:9, and it says, "We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps." We can think it's not for us, but if it is for you, God will guide you there. And I like to think of my life as a bit like Jonah, running away, and God just putting you back on the path. There are two sides of it, because for me, getting unwell shifted my pathway, and I don't actually think God had put me on the wrong path. I think he put me on the right path, and then when he wanted to kind of change direction, my health and things that happened were all purposeful. They weren't to try and shift me back the right way because I was going the wrong way. That was actually the plan. But there have been things in my life and types of service that I've really avoided, and they just keep coming. And then when you finally step into them, you really feel God's kind of arms and blessing around you. But I wanted to actually look at the entire passage in Corinthians, not just verse 9, which says, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for them." Because when you read the whole passage, there's just a lot of interesting things that come out of it. And I have new notes that I wrote down, and I have an old note, which I think was really interesting. So let's start reading. So it's 1 Corinthians chapter 2. It says, "And so it was with me, brothers and sisters. When I came to you, I did not come with eloquence or human wisdom, as I proclaimed to you the testimony about God. For I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I came to you in weakness, with great fear and trembling. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power." Let's just pause there. It's saying here that it wasn't his great speaking and wonderful words. It was God's words. It was God using him, and he came in weakness and trembling. And it made me think, the things that we think are not for us, much of the time is because it makes us uncomfortable and we get nervous and anxious and we don't feel equipped. And actually that's the time when God will use us for those things, because actually it demonstrates his power, his glory. We actually give him the honor that he's due, because if I'm already confident and I go to the front of church and preach, well then I'm doing it in my confidence, right? Because I already know I was confident and I could go and speak. And so I'm less likely to give the glory to God, and it's less evident to those around me that, wow, it's by the glory of God that she got up there. Whereas coming from a position where I couldn't even be in front of people I've known my entire life for more than 15, 16 years at the front of church, to suddenly being at the front of church and preaching, people can see that it's God's work in my life and it brings him glory. And it means every time I go up there, I'm thanking God and telling people it's only through God that I'm here. And so that's why it's actually important for us to delve into some of those things that we think are not for us, because actually they're the really important things that God is using to demonstrate his glory, his power, and to show that we can't do things through our own human efforts. It has to be through him. And I actually wrote here, "My anxiety and health have purposes to show God's glory and not human boasting." And that's something I wrote a long time ago. And then this time I wrote that we're often called to do things that are not for us because of the fact that it gives him glory, and it also shows that he can strengthen us to do things that we don't even think we're capable of, because he is so much mightier and he knows how much he can do for us. And then it goes on to say, "We do, however, speak a message of wisdom among the mature, but not wisdom that is of this age or of rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. No, we declare God's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden and that God destined for our glory before time began. None of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. However, it is written, 'What no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things that God has prepared for those who love him.'" We're going to pause here too, because that's so interesting, that that means a lot of things. We can't understand what heaven is going to be like really, because we can't imagine how good it's going to be. And that's what it's kind of saying. We can't imagine what God has prepared for us. Our minds can't conceive that. We can't conceive how amazing and knowledgeable and powerful he really is. We can, we think we do, but we can't really totally get it in our human minds. But again, it's kind of saying we can think that we know who we are and what God's planned us to do and what is for us and not for us, but actually we don't, because we can't even conceive how much God can do with us, especially in our weakness and our trembling and the things that are not for us. He can do so much more with than the things that we think we're capable of. And it says, these are the things that God has revealed to us by his Spirit. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. For who knows a person's thought except their own spirit within them? In the same way, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. What we have received is not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from God, so we may understand what God has freely given us. This is what we speak, not in words taught by human wisdom, but in words taught by the Spirit, explaining spiritual realities with spiritual taught words. The person without the Spirit does not accept things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness and can't understand them, because they are only discerned through the Spirit. The person with the Spirit makes judgments about all things, but such a person is not subject to merely human judgments. For who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. You know, we can't fathom the mind of God, but we do have the Holy Spirit, which allows us to kind of understand his word, to understand the things that he's putting towards us. And it's through his Spirit that we can understand these new realities. My new reality of speaking at the front of church and going public with my faith even more on YouTube and Instagram, things that I didn't feel that I was very confident or could do. It's through the Spirit. The Holy Spirit enables you to understand God's calling. It enables you to speak out and to continue doing those things. And when God is speaking to us, especially if he's prompting you about something that you'll keep saying, it's not for me. Maybe we need to check too that our spirit is in alignment. Like maybe we've done something or pushed God out, and actually because we're not living in the Spirit, we can't discern that God is actually calling us for his will. That's why we keep putting it off. We need to make sure we are awake with our spirits too. That's something really interesting in this point. And who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? We can't tell God how it's going to be. We can't tell God how it's going to go. We can't plan our lives out like the other verse says. We can make our plans, but God is the one who defines our steps. At the end of the day, friends, we can say it's not for us, but God very may well be saying it is for you. And next time you say that, maybe have a think, because in a few weeks, in a few months, or even in a few years, you could be sitting there doing that one thing you said was not for you. I think it's funny right now because I'm going through something at the moment that I don't want to talk about too much publicly yet, but I'm looking into doing something that a few people told me and a few people made jokes about along the way, and I may well be going into that field. And I think it's so funny because it was the one thing I was so adamant was not for me. And God is kind of smiling as if to say, you don't know my mind, you don't know, you can't make your plans, I'm going to direct you, and actually it is for you. So when you next think about doing something for the Lord's service or just living out your life, think about whether or not God is actually prompting you, because maybe it is for you. Because we can't define our steps, but God can. So instead of saying, it's not for me, maybe we should say, God, is it for me? Because if it is, I'm willing to do it. Alright guys, I hope that you have a wonderful Sunday and that you just found this video interesting, and let me know down below if there was anything that you were adamant was not for you but God ended up being like, actually this is for you. Let me know down below because I love connecting with you guys. Okay, I hope to see you guys on Wednesday for another video. Bye!